Hi guys, this is Andy Morgan from Total Therapy Birmingham. A little more casual today. I wanted to share some thoughts that just came into my mind as I was waking up, about our affinities, about the ways we learn, but also they'll interact and relate to the ways that we live our life, the way we interact with the world. Now, most of you, or many of you, will be aware there are four main ways for people to learn. People learn by seeing, listening, by writing down or by reading, and by doing. I think there's another one in there, but those are the main ones I'm aware of. So you'll see people and they are shown something, but until they write down some notes, they won't necessarily get it. Other people will get it as soon as they're shown it. Other people need to listen to the description and process it through the words. Yeah. So everyone has their ways of processing information and taking it on board. Now you'll also have the ways that people relate to the world, and they often relate to the senses. Now, that sounds like a strange one to do, of how can people relate to the world by the sense of smell, but actually there are people who do. But most people, it's sight. And the way you'll be able to tell those is they will come out with phrases that show this. So when you're talking to someone, they go, "Ah, yes, I see what you mean, I see what you mean." They're looking, they're visually seeing, and in whatever way they are visually taking in the world and processing it that way. Other people, it will be audible, hearing. So they may say things like, "Oh, I hear you, I hear what you're saying," or for a friend of mine who just said, "Oh, yeah, sound, sound, sound." And it seems like the small things, but they'll have an affinity. Funny enough, he's a DJ, he's a mixer, he's always been interested in music, but he processes his world through sound. There'll be those who are tactile, so they're a toucher, they're touchy-feely, they like to get their hands on things, and they like to experience things with hands and learn through hands. They'll often say things like, "Oh yeah, I feel you," or "I know how you feel." Now there's an emotional aspect there, but it's the feeling aspect. Now I've had one that literally just come to my mind, and it comes to that phrasing of when you get it. So if someone is explaining something and you go, "Oh, I see," it's "Thank you for showing me the new perspective, and I now understand," or "I feel you," or "I hear you." They're all taken as messages of learning. Now mine, weirdly enough, was always "I know." But it was always taken, and I built an insecurity around it, as ego. You're telling me something, and I already know it. And the reason why this is odd is that that's a phrase that's very egotistical. But it was true. Only not in the sense that I knew it, because obviously if I knew it, I would have done it. But when it was explained to me, the truth of it was shown, and I realised that there was a part of me that knew that, or because of someone explaining to me, I now know it. So if someone says, "Oh, I see," it's, "Oh, great, I see your perspective." And if someone goes, "Oh, I know," it was always taken as a negative. But actually, now I think about it, and I'm actually quite pleased with myself, I suddenly went, "Oh, if I'd said, 'Oh, I realise,' or 'now I know,' then it would have been taken differently." But that's the semantics of wording. But it just meant I was learning. It just meant I was learning, and I lived my life through my internal mind. Now, the reason why this is significant is for many, 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 many reasons. The main ones being phrases like "I've lived in my head," and some people have said "I live in my head," which is true. I spent most of my life reading sci-fi books, and creating my world and living my world in my head, for rightly or wrongly. But I didn't. Yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you don't look where you're going. You're not hearing me. You're not listening to me," which was largely true, not because of ego, but because I process the world sentiently. If there's jumping quickly onto the clairs, just because I'm interested in those. So clairvoyance is the one most people see. People clear sight. Now that will be strong in people who observe the world, those who say, "Oh, I see," and if they really look, they will be able to see beyond the superficial, be able to see beyond the world and see the truth behind things, because that's their strength. People say, "Oh, I hear you," or using audible things. Well, likely if they work on it, will develop clairaudience. They'll be able to hear more than just the words that they're saying. They'll be able to hear the undertones. They'll be able to hear lies. They'll be able to hear what's really being said, and that's just at the superficial level. They may, on the mediumship, they may hear voices, they may hear words, they may ask a question and hear the answer. You can get clairscent. A friend of mine has the ability to, her sense of smell changes when she comes across people of odd energies or healthy energies. Their smell changes, and it's not their physical smell; it's their energetic smell. Very cool. And there's clairtangents, so touch. So people who hold things in their hand, who touch things, are able to tell things about it. Now, so sometimes it's they'll be able to get a flash of or an inspiration of something about that object. Those who are more highly trained, and you use this in the guys who help police sometimes, they'll hold an object of the victim or the person who's lost or whatever, and be able to see or tell where that person is or might be. You can also look into the history of things. So people hold it and they'll know the history of the object. Again, amazing stuff. Deeper stuff, but all about our deeper skills, which I truly believe that we have. Now mine, and it links lovely to my inspiration this morning, it has always been clairsentient, which is, amusingly, I just know stuff. Which again, very handy. People ask a question, I know it. I can't see it, I can't hear it, I can't smell it, but I know it. And I know it. But I hadn't realised that this is how I live my life until just this moment. Even though it's probably blatantly obvious, but that's the joys of epiphanies and awareness. Is you don't know it. You don't know you know it until you know it. Now, the reason I say this, and the reason I'm telling you this, is because my clairsentience, my knowing, was always undone by my insecurities and fears. Because I couldn't see it, because I couldn't touch it, because I couldn't smell it, because I couldn't hear it, I just knew it. There was no physical proof as we talk about it. We talk about our five senses, but our sixth sense is our intuition, our knowing. And because I never had the affirmation within the five senses, there was always a doubt, and mostly that was cast on by other people or the insecurities were given to me. So I knew it. It's those ones where quizzes. You know the answer. You want to press B. You want to press B, but someone goes, no, it's C. And your insecurities kick in, I'm not so sure. Because you don't know the answer. You've never known that answer before. But there's a part of you that goes, it's B, it's B, it's B. Funnily enough, they press C and the answer comes out as B, and you knew we were right. So mine was always undermined by my doubts, my fears, my worries, my insecurities, my second guessing, my lack of self-worth, and all the other things that I've been working on. So yeah, the message to you guys, those people who are clairsentient, those people who do just know the answer and will often use the phrase "I know." This hopefully is a little video to you guys going, you're not egotistical. You weren't a snotty little kid. You weren't a know-it-all. You did know more than you thought you knew. You just had an unfortunate way of saying it that came across as, yeah, I know. Now, there would have been a defensiveness in there as well, because, and that's the confusing thing, you knew it, but you didn't trust it, and you didn't believe it, so you didn't say it. But you knew it. So you can kick yourself a little bit for that, but also this is hopefully a little understanding of why. How did I know that? Why did I know that? I've never known that before in my life, so therefore it can't be true. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Because you did. Because that's your skill, that's your power, that's your ability, that's your nuance in the world. So for me at the minute, I am working on, as weirdly as it may seem, looking at the world, being present in the world more, because I've lived most of my life in my head, because it's A, is an escape, and B, because that's where the truth is, because I've never really bothered to use the truth of physical senses. I cruised through life, I got by on my natural intuition without really trying. So I didn't have to look where I was going. Even in martial arts, I don't necessarily have to look. My body or my intuition or something about it, I know where I'm going. My taijutsu, as the Japanese call it, my body movement is generally very good. More so since I started my massage, and this is because my clairtangents kicked in. So massage, I started to hold and feel the body with my hands. With martial arts, you're having physical contact. With the massage, I'm physically in contact with my client. And even though I can't see it, even though because we're usually over a towel or over oil or it's just within the skin, I can feel it, so I know the answer. My job as an acoustician, I go out and do noise surveys, and I stand out for very long hours listening, which brought out my clairaudience. So I know I have the innate skill because I've used it. Now, interestingly, one of my early experiences with my clairs was actually clairvoyance and clear sight, and I could see the energy in trees and plants. The reason why it's weird is that came out during a noise survey, so I was spending the whole time listening, and because I was spending so much energy on my hearing, I let everything else relax. I didn't need anything else, and it was getting dark anyway. And I suddenly looked up, and all the trees are sort of wafting and waving around, and the daisies in the grass are making me all seasick. Very cool. So my first clair experience of being able to see the energy in trees came from listening, my clairaudient work. So now I'm going deeper with those. I'm trying to see energies, I'm trying to see auras, and I can to some extent. I'm trying to hear the tones of the world, and I can to some extent. But I think I suppose I wanted to rate this video as my little epiphany of my knowing, my clairsentience has always been my strength, which also makes it my weakness because it's what you fall back on. But it's never. Now I know it's a natural part of me. It wasn't my ego. It wasn't a part of me that was shunned against me or a negative side, because that's how I perceived it. I know. And now I know. You know? Okay, I'll catch you guys another day. If you like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.